The class laughed at the black girl, and the teacher supported them until he appeared from the Pentagon. At first glance, it seemed like a typical school story, a new student trying to find her place among the spoiled children of influential families. But what if behind the simple words of the girl, whom no one believed, there was something much greater? When the truth finally came out, it turned out to be not just about reputation, but national security. Corey Robinson noticed their gazes as soon as she entered the building at St. Clair Prep with her non-designer backpack and the jacket she had been wearing since the previous year. No one said anything, but it was clear. St. Clair Prep wasn't just a private school. It was a miniature version of the world where every name meant something and surnames weighed more than grades. Here, children of senators, corporate owners, and people whose nannies had resumes better than many teachers studied. Against them, Corey, a black girl from a regular suburb, seemed, to put it mildly, out of place. She walked through the corridor, trying to keep her back straight as her father had taught her. Don't give them a reason to think you're less than they are. But when you're the only one not wearing Balenciaga sneakers, it's hard. Hey, you're the new one? A voice called from behind. Corey turned around. A tall, blond guy with impeccably styled hair stood in front of her. It was Cam Lawrence, the congressman's son, as she learned from the pamphlet they gave on the first day. His face was polite, but his voice held a frozen mockery. Yeah, she answered. I'm Camden. Welcome to the rich kid's paradise. Where are you from? Arlington. Oh, cool. My people have a house there when they're not in Miami. My people. She just nodded. Well, see you in social studies, new girl, he said, walking away. In social studies, she sat by the window, closer to the door. The others sat in their usual places, glancing and whispering to each other. The teacher, Mr. Rolls, looked at her with the expression she had often seen on adults, a mix of curiosity and restrained doubt. We have a new student, introduce yourself, he said, without taking his eyes off the roster. Robinson. We moved recently. And my mom's a nurse. My dad works at the Pentagon, in the cyber division. For a moment, the class went quiet. Then someone, it seemed like Camden, snorted loudly. Yeah, sure, he muttered, and a few people smirked. Someone whispered, she should have said, I'm the president's daughter. Mr. Rolls smiled too. The Pentagon, huh? Well, we all have to strive for the best. Corey felt her cheeks burning. She knew her father had asked her not to publicize his job, but the truth was, he did work there. Not as a spy or a hero, but as a real analyst in the Special Network Protection Division. Her father was no fiction. At lunch, she sat alone, surrounded by the noise, laughter, and clinking dishes. Two girls passed by, and one said out loud, obviously for her to hear, Do you think it's true? The Pentagon thing? Looks like she watched too many shows. Corey finished her lunch, trying not to show any emotions. That evening, at home, she called her dad. He was on a business trip, as usual. Everything okay, sweetie? He asked. Yeah, it's just... They don't believe you work at the Pentagon and they're laughing about it. He was silent for a moment, then said, They'll laugh until they see who you really are. And one day, the day will come when you'll be standing there, and they'll be the ones listening. She didn't answer, just held the phone and listened to his voice. The next day, the school announced, in 3 weeks career day. Parents will give talks about their professions. Students were already sharing. Some moms were judges, some dads were lobbyists, owners of funds, developers of space programs. When it was her turn, Corey quietly said, My dad, if he manages to come back from his business trip, can also speak. He works at the Pentagon. The teacher smiled faintly, and in the notebook next to her name, wrote in pencil, Questionable? Someone giggled again. At the exit from the class, Corey saw a sticker on her notebook. FBI is on the way. Don't forget the bulletproof vest. She peeled off the paper and threw it in the trash. With each passing week, staying at St. Clair Prep became harder. At first, Corey just tried to avoid attention. Then, she tried not to react. Now, it seemed that her very existence was annoying to some, especially Camden. "Hey, I heard you talked about the Pentagon again?" he tossed out casually by her locker. "I didn't talk about it," Corey replied calmly. "They asked and I answered." "Of course, you're a special agent or maybe the daughter of a general," he sneered and walked off, throwing over his shoulder, "Your dad is probably having coffee with James Bond." Corey didn't respond. She had gotten used to this game, to say nothing directly, but put everything in the tone. The rumors spread around the school. Some claimed her dad was actually a driver, others said he didn't exist. In the media club, which Corey naively joined, someone said to her face, "We need an interview with real parents, not imaginary ones." She didn't apologize. She just stood up and left. In history class, when they were discussing government structures, someone from the back of the room whispered loudly, "Maybe Corey can explain it all. She's straight from the Pentagon." Even the teacher, Miss Lowry, couldn't help but smile slightly. But the worst part wasn't this. It was the feeling that even the adults didn't believe you. Once, after school, Corey stayed behind to ask a question about the homework. Mr. Rolls, without looking up from the computer, suddenly asked, "Corey, tell me honestly, is it true your dad works at the Pentagon?" "Yes," she answered calmly. "Don't get me wrong, I'm not judging. Sometimes kids make things up to feel more confident. And here, well, the level is high." He emphasized the last word, as if implying she didn't belong there. "He really works there. I can bring him to career day." Mr. Rolls nodded stiffly. "Well, then I'll write it down. Let him come. It'll be interesting to hear." But his voice didn't sound like someone who was looking forward to meeting someone serious. It sounded more like someone ready for a revelation. That evening, Corey sat in her room, staring at the blank screen of her tablet. Her mom was on the night shift, and her dad was away on a trip to Maryland. He had called yesterday, promising not to worry and that he would be back on time, but now she doubted he would come. And if he didn't show up, no one would believe her. Or worse, they would say he didn't come because he didn't exist. She sent him a short message, "Are you sure you'll be here?" The reply came in a couple of minutes. "I promise, sweetie, I won't miss it. And yes, I'll bring my badge in case anyone needs proof." Corey smiled, but not for long. In the morning, on her desk lay a printout of a photo of some man in a jumpsuit with the caption, "Here's your daddy, the janitor at the Pentagon." Corey took the paper, carefully rolled it up, and hid it in her backpack. Someone was watching her reaction, but she didn't give them a chance to see anything. At lunch, a girl named Leaf sat at her table. They hadn't talked much before. Leaf looked at her seriously and said, "You know, everyone thinks you made it all up. But you, Corey, you immediately asked, didn't you?" "I don't know," Corey replied, "but if it's true, you're brave. If it's not, it was dumb to say. People here don't forgive things like that." "It's true," Corey whispered. Leaf nodded and stood up. "Then you'd better hope he shows up." 1 week remained until career day. By the office door, there was a list of participants, and next to her name, someone had written, "Or is he on another secret mission?" Corey wiped the ink off with her finger. It smudged, but the mark remained. When she got home, there was an envelope on the table, postmarked from Washington. Inside was an official invitation for career day and a printout of a pass. James Robinson, Department of Defense. Her father kept his word. She hung the pass on the wall above her desk as a reminder. Everything would change soon. The morning of career day started not with panic, as it usually did before important events, but with silence. Everything was too perfectly arranged in Corey's head. She woke up before the alarm, put on a neatly pressed skirt, a white shirt ironed by her mom, and a cardigan. Her father promised to arrive by 11. His speech was 6th on the list. Everything was supposed to go perfectly. Even the bus didn't run late. The auditorium was crowded. Parents entered through a separate door, greeted by high schoolers in formal suits, each with a badge displaying their name and title. Corey looked around, trying to spot a familiar face. Her father was not there. A voice broke the silence. "Camden. Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," Corey answered. "I heard we have a special guest today, straight from the Pentagon. Or maybe from a Hollywood casting. You'll be surprised." "Don't worry, Camden," Corey replied calmly. "Oh, I already am. Especially if he actually shows up." He passed by without even glancing her way. On stage, one parent after another spoke. Sophia's father talked about the oil company. Dylan's mom talked about lobbying. Some presented a startup for quantum computing. The stage was decorated with a banner that read, "The future begins with example." Each speaker received 5 minutes of applause, increasing with each speech. When it was Corey's turn, the music teacher smiled and announced, "Now, we will hear from Corey Robinson. Her father works for the Department of Defense." The stage suddenly felt too big, the hall too quiet. Corey approached the microphone, feeling her legs wobble a bit. "Hello, my name is Corey, and I want to tell you a bit about my father's job. He works at the Pentagon. He is a cybersecurity specialist. This means he helps protect digital systems from attacks, hacks, and data breaches." A laugh sounded from the back of the room. Then another. Someone whispered, "Now, here comes the actor." "Maybe he couldn't make it," Camden asked loudly, without hesitation. "Or maybe his mission is classified," he added. The hall nervously chuckled. Even some parents exchanged looks. Corey swallowed. "He will be here. He promised." "Yeah, of course," one of the adults chimed in. "It's an unusual job. Being late is probably a matter of national importance." "Let's let her finish," the teacher mumbled, but her voice sounded tired. "He's just delayed." Corey looked at the entrance where the parents should have been coming in. It was empty. She went silent. "Well, next," someone from the front row said. Corey was still standing. She didn't want to leave the stage. That would mean giving up, admitting they were right. She repeated, "He will come." And in that moment, something strange happened in the hall. One of the parents, a man in a suit who appeared to be a congressman, took out a tablet. His face tightened. Then another parent, a woman from a tech company, furrowed her brows while checking her phone. Corey felt the air in the room shift. Someone whispered, "Is it a virus? Is the network compromised? Someone is hacking the internal mailing list." The hall buzzed. The assistant principal walked up to the stage and quickly whispered something in the host's ear. She nodded and stepped aside. Then the doors flew open, and a tall man in a dark blue jacket, without a tie, holding a neat folder, confidently walked in. He went up to the stage. "Sorry for the delay," he said, looking straight at Corey. "I had to stop an attack." Corey recognized his voice, and suddenly, all the noise around her became background. She took half a step back as he placed his hand on her shoulder. "I promised I'd come," he whispered. She didn't answer. She just nodded. Now, no one in the hall was laughing. After James Robinson's words, the auditorium froze. No whispers, no movements, just the muffled hum of turning off tablets and phones, as if someone had given the order to be silent. Even those who had been laughing half an hour ago now stared at the stage, their eyes wide, as if they couldn't believe this was really happening. The school principal, Mr. Eldridge, quickly approached the stage and turned to Corey's father. "Mr. Robinson, are you sure this is a real threat?" "Yes," he replied briefly, nodding. "We tracked unauthorized access to the local network. The breach came through a fake Wi-Fi login page, masked as an official one." He took a tablet from his folder and displayed a diagram of the event logs, IP addresses, routes. One of the parents gasped, seeing their name among the target. Most of those present were connected to government agencies, large companies, or lobbying organizations. Whoever was behind this, they were gathering data, passwords, emails, contacts. "We are under attack." One of the mothers couldn't hold it anymore. "The threat has been neutralized, but we don't rule out that this was just reconnaissance. Therefore, I ask everyone who connected to the network today to hand over their devices to our team at the exit. We persuaded the school administration to cooperate. I promise everything will be confidential and handled according to protocols." He spoke calmly, without any pomp, but with such firmness that Corey felt goosebumps on her skin. This was her father, and now no one doubted that he was telling the truth. After the speech, Mr. Eldridge invited James and Corey to his office. There were already 2 officers from the cyber unit there. They had arrived just 15 minutes earlier in civilian clothes. The conversation went straight to the point. Corey sat slightly to the side, observing her father. He was focused and calm, sometimes nodding, showing something on his tablet. His speech didn't have unnecessary words. He wasn't trying to show off. As the saying goes, he was just doing his job. "We can't say for sure who's behind this," James said. But masking it as a school system was clever. They calculated that no one would notice, especially on a day when so many valuable targets are gathered in one place. Career Day was the bait, the director clarified. Or perhaps a catalyst. It was the perfect opportunity. Relaxed users, a shared network, a large number of influential people. But we've already sent the data upstairs. Now it's our team's job. Half an hour later, Corey and her father walked out into the schoolyard. The event had been cut short. Some parents left immediately, while others stayed in the lobby, discussing the situation. At the door, officers were already collecting devices. Camden approached them. Corey was ready for sarcasm, but his face was different now. No smirk, no bravado. "Mr. Robinson," Camden began. "Yes," James replied. "I just wanted to apologize to you and Corey. I acted like an idiot. No one thought this was real. Sometimes the hardest truth to see is when it doesn't fit your expectations," James answered calmly. Camden nodded, turned, and walked away. "That was strange," Corey whispered. "Get used to it, kid," her father said. "When the truth stands tall, many people lower their eyes." That day at school, an emergency meeting was held. The principal publicly apologized to Corey and thanked James for his quick and professional response. He mentioned that the school planned to review its internal security protocols. Corey sat in the front row. No one stared at her, whispered, or giggled anymore. Liv, the same girl who had once said she hoped it was true, sat next to her. "You know," Liv whispered, "I never had any friends whose parents worked at the Pentagon. Now I do." Corey didn't know what to say. She just smiled. After the meeting, she and her father went to the car. "So," he said, starting the engine, "where to, heroin? I can just go home, but first, can we stop by the cafe on the corner? I want ice cream. Too serious a day. Ice cream is a psychological stabilization strategy," he winked. "Approved." She buckled her seatbelt and looked out the window as they drove past her school. Her school. Now, truly. 2 days after Career Day, the atmosphere at school had changed. Not literally quieter. Bells still rang and teens still ran around the hallways shouting, but the vibe was different. It no longer felt hostile. The looks people gave Corey no longer carried mockery. Now it was interest and respect. The first person to approach her in the library was Mr. Rawls, the social studies teacher. He looked as stern as always, but his voice had a different tone. "Corey," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I want to apologize. I think you know I didn't act in the best way." She nodded but didn't smile. She simply said, "Thanks for saying that. We're going to have a new unit on cybersecurity. I was thinking maybe you could speak to the class or perhaps ask your father to send some materials." The suggestion was honest, not condescending, and that felt good. "I'll think about it," Corey replied. After class, Liv invited Corey to sit with her for lunch. At their table were 3 other girls. One of them, Madison, cautiously asked, "Did you really know about the attack beforehand?" "No, he never tells me anything like that. He just promised he'd show up and did, right on time." "He's cool," Liv said. For the first time in weeks, Corey didn't feel like a guest in that building. She felt like part of it. That evening, her mom brought home pizza. Her dad had just flown back from a briefing in the District of Columbia. They had dinner in the kitchen as usual, no waiters, no security, no pomp. "How was your day?" he asked. "Not as noisy as the last one," Corey smirked. "You guys calmed down quickly," her mom added. "In our time, it would have been at least a week of discussions." "Do you think they'll forget?" Corey asked. Her dad put his glass on the table. "Some will. Most won't. But what matters is not what they remember, but who you become after it." She nodded. He was right. The following week, Corey went to the board in her computer science class. She talked about phishing, how to tell a fake website from a real one, which passwords are more secure, and how malicious scripts work. Everyone listened, including Camden. He didn't joke around anymore. Instead, he asked a few smart questions. After class, he approached her and said, "You know, I still think you made up the whole coffee with James Bond thing, but you did good." "Thanks. Thanks, Camden. And you're almost not annoying when you're not laughing," Corey replied. He laughed and walked away. At the end of the week, Corey passed the bulletin board. There was a new club schedule posted. Someone had written in marker, "Looking for people for the new cybersecurity club." Headliner, Corey Robinson. She smirked and turned to take a picture when she noticed Liv standing nearby. "Are you going to join?" Liv asked. "I haven't decided yet, but probably. My dad will be happy. He's a hero. You know, he just does his job like Mom." Liv nodded. "And you?" Corey thought for a moment. "I just didn't stay silent." On Sunday, she and her father went to that same little cafe on the corner where it always smelled of caramel. They sat by the window, eating ice cream and watching the kids playing outside. "So, kiddo, ready for the next attack?" he grinned. She looked at him, then at her cup of chocolate shavings and said, "Always."